Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light city, sweet Hope, Chicago.
Hey there, I am really Marty Levinson. Don't let anybody fool you. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at ntnm.org. Community policing, we're really big on that, caps24.org. And Sonny runs that site. In his spare time, he's chairman of the District Advisory Committee of the 24th District. We give a lot of credit to the 24th District for doing the best they can, short manpower, to try to have the closest thing possible to regular monthly meetings with as small a group as possible and still get the best results. And they've really done a good job of condensing things, and we congratulate and salute them. It is a pleasure to have somebody who I haven't had on for too long, who actually has been appointed to be head of a very controversial subject within the county. We're talking, well, first I'm going to introduce you to the Commissioner of the 10th District, Bridget Gainer. How you doing?
Thanks, Avi, for having me.
First of all, good pleasure to see you, and want to say hi to Katie, who's always a pleasure to deal with, and she's always great about everything. So you are now the head of the pension committee.
Yes.
And that's got to be like, I know about the state mess. I know a little bit about what's going on with the city. How big a mess does the county have?
The county is probably better off than the rest, but that doesn't really say a whole lot. So the county's 60% funded. So unless we change things now, we will be out of money completely by 2038. So that's a pretty serious thing.
I saw 26 years in your story.
Right. So it's serious. If you're in your 30s or 40s, that means you're really never going to see a pension. If you're in your 60s or 70s, it may not last your lifetime. And so we know that we need to make changes now, and the employees know too, and the administration. I mean, the president's completely on board with pension reform. We've had discussions over the last year and a half at the pension committee. So we tried to take a slightly different tack, and one of the things that we noticed in the debate is that there isn't a way to really involve the employees or really involve a lot of conversation about options. So we hired the actuary from the pension fund, Sandra Goldstein, and he's probably done 50 different calculations for us over the last year and a half. What does it do to the fund if you raise the retirement age or lower the multiple or do any number of things? And it gives people a sense of kind of what hill is worth dying on. We all know now from the plans, but from the various options that are out there, that changing the COLA makes a huge difference, the cost of living increase at the end. But I think that, and I know we're going to talk more about pension on another show, but one of the things that we think is really important is all the information's out there and it's transparent. So we put out a website. It's openpensions.org. So every bit of information that we did any actuarial analysis on is out there on the web, and we have conversations going on there. Should you have a different retirement age for law enforcement? Should you have a cap on pensions for doctors or other highly paid employees? How should we think about creating pension reform? So the two things important to me were it remained a defined benefit pension plan. That was number one.
It remained what?
A defined benefit plan, which instead of a 401k, it's a guaranteed retirement income in your old age. And the second thing is that, at the county now, when you retire, your health care is not guaranteed. It could go away at any time. The fund could just cancel providing it. And so we wanted to make that permanent because we think that that's the way, via the Constitution, to kind of have a trade-off with employees, and it's also the right thing to do. So we put provisions out there. Everything's on the website. I would encourage anyone who's interested to look at it. But our job now is to just be out talking to as many people as we can to get their thoughts and feedback on what the best plan is.
So, that I hear, and I think you're taking the right tack, because you were already in an impossible situation. I mean, 60% funding, that's better than the state.
Right.
But Forbes rates the state 49th out of 50th, and State Treasurer Dan Rutherford takes issue with the fact that we should be 50th.
Yeah. It's a hard thing, and, you always have to remember that you're not just talking about statistics or numbers or debt. You're talking about people's ability to live a dignified retirement. And so that's why it's important. I mean, myself and Joan Murphy, who's also on the committee with me, were out at a labor hall last week talking to about 60 or 70 rank and file, tradesmen and asking their opinion. And people had lots of thoughts. There was 2 great ideas that were brought up that the actuary hadn't even thought of. And so our real intention now is to talk to as many people as we can. And I know we'll come up with a better plan at the end of all that.
No, I think the open, honest thing definitely works. If
Yeah.
people in the city of Chicago should probably listen to that.
I think
at
they're
least
doing it.
41 of them.
They are putting together, their own plan now. I know the city. The governor came out with a really interesting plan. I don't know if you saw that last week.
Well, part of it is we're filming shortly after Passover. I was out of town.
Oh, right.
I'm still catching up. No, you don't have to worry about it. It's just that I can't read everything all at once. I try.
Right.
I haven't even read George Will's column yet, which I'm dying to read.
I haven't seen it. But the governor came out with a great plan on
Well,
Friday.
he talked about pensions and stuff. I don't know if you heard about it.
What did he say?
I haven't read it yet.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
I'll email it to you later.
Right. So the governor has a plan. The Water Reclamation District has a plan. And I think the interesting thing about this is each group of employees is different. The way we fund our pensions at different agencies is different. And so it goes to figure that each of you would have a different way of going about it. It doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all solution. It should be tailored to, the employee base and the fund. At the county, we pull our funding for the pension from the property tax, a highly sensitive tax. People are not in the place right now where they're willing to take a property tax increase.
Which, by the way, all of us got.
Which we got anyway, and I think not from the county.
No, not from the county.
The
From the city, Ron, be honest. You control the schools. I'm not talking for her.
Right. So
not looking to get anybody in trouble with me.
So I think we have to really be careful about what we change. And water reclamation has taxes. Then the state has general funds. So each one is coming up with their own solution, and that's the right way to go forward.
Right. Now, by the way, that's also not to mention too, and I want to get back. The state has a law on the books that basically to kick in for pensions in 2 years, unless it's repealed, I think it's 2 years, will basically up the income tax something like 50%.
That's to pay for police and fire. So what that state law said is you have to, for City of Chicago, you have to have 100% or actuarial funding starting in 2015. Yeah. And the amount of the increase that will create, because the police and fire fund are well below 50% funded. And and there's a lot more early retirements there, but it's a very physical job and a very demanding job. And so there's often been speculation that will change in some sort of grand bargain of pension reform, but as of now, it's still on the books.
And very few people are talking about it. Does this affect the county also?
No, it doesn't. I mean, look, everything affects everybody in the sense that it's the same taxpayers, it's the same bucket of property tax and income tax and sales tax. So everyone will be affected, but the county doesn't pay any additional amount for City of Chicago employees.
No, I got you. Now, my question, I'm just curious because the Water Reclamation District, basically, I mean, they've got their AAA rating, they've been very well funded, they've been very self-supporting, they've actually given money back. How does their pension fund sitting?
They're probably about in the low 60s as well. They're not far from the county. And the way they're addressing their change to get to better funded status is by mostly increasing contributions by the Water Reclamation District and the employees. So it goes up to about, I think, 12 or 13 or maybe 12% of pay for employees. And then the Water Reclamation District matches that, a multiple of that. So they're driving it mostly by contributions. The governor is driving it by a combination of contributions and COLA changes.
So it's going to be a combination. Now, do you foresee a situation where people with existing benefits are going to get cut back?
No one's going to cut anyone's benefits as they exist right now. The only thing that's on the table is that it will slow the growth of the benefit. So whatever you have earned now never changes. That stays consistent. Yeah. But it may be that your benefit grows at a slower pace than it would have if the plan didn't change.
Like you may not get cost of living, or in the case of some unions that are very powerful are able to get more than the cost of living. I'm thinking of the Chicago Teachers Union. I mean, I think this is the first year they have to do without raises.
Well, the raises for active employees and the cost of living for retirees are different,
yeah.
But I think the key thing is, people are living much longer now. So in a lot of ways, to think about it, the benefit is becoming more valuable because you're collecting it for a longer period of time. So maybe the growth has to be smaller and the benefit has to be smaller, but you're going to collect it for a longer period of time. And on the other hand, anyone who's had a 401k or a mortgage as their main retirement vehicle, because people's homes are a large part of their retirement savings, those have taken huge hits in the last 10
Oh,
years
huge.
based on investments. And the pension funds are no different. You know, the county pension fund lost 24% or $1.5 billion in 2008. And we're still recovering from that. And that's a lot of why we're unfunded. I mean, 10 years ago, we were 90% funded. And it was an early retirement that was expensive, investment shocks, and then the cost of health care. And so
That's interesting. It went from 90 to 60?
in 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I think that you need to look at all of that and determine that, everyone else on the outside has taken a hit in these things and they've had to recalibrate their budget and plan for retirement. And we're no different. We have to step back and say, okay, we took some hits on the investment side. How do we make sure that we are planning for the future to know that when people retire, it's safe and secure?
Yeah, this house was worth $360 before Fluey, and I'd be lucky to get $2 for it now.
Yeah, I mean, so everyone has taken some of the hit, and I think that will hopefully mend itself over time.
Now, yeah, you really brought up an interesting point I do want to get back to, because you talked about when Social Security was first enacted, people didn't live to be 65. The average age was less than 65. And basically it was meant to be something that would save people who would be desperate in their old age.
Right.
And now that you not only have people living much longer than that, you have people living healthy and then unfortunately not so healthy past a certain point, because all sorts of new diseases happen to a person at a certain point that become expensive. So do you foresee like a later retirement age for people?
Sure. I mean, I think that when you look at the average age that people retired and lived after their retirement, you're right, it was a couple years, 5 years, 6 years, 8 years. Even on the private sector pensions, the auto pensions were no different. Yeah. The average age, I think, was 72, and people retired at 65. And so the thing that's happened in the last generation, especially in the public sector, is retirement ages have gone down a little bit, have gotten earlier. And life expectancies got longer, which is a great thing to live longer, but it just made the pension piece harder to sustain. The important thing to remember about county employees, as well as city and most state employees, is they don't receive Social Security at all. So this pension is their only retirement vehicle. No, they don't pay into the Social Security system because they have a defined benefit pension plan that qualifies with the federal government.
So this is crucial.
This is it, and this is why it's so important to make sure that it isn't just that you're solving the problem for the next 5 years, but you're solving the problem for the next generation and beyond, because people need to rely on that. But I think that these are solvable problems. It just takes leadership, and as I said, President Preckwinkle is very supportive of pension reform. The members of the committee and generally the board in general is supportive of pension reform, and as are the employees. They know that things need to change.
Well, it's interesting because I wouldn't have said this 10 years ago, but you've actually got a lot of very intelligent people on the county board now.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're one of them.
Thanks. Thanks. No, it's great. Everyone knows that it's time, and I think you see that with all of the conversation around pension. But the main thing is, I would encourage people, openpensions.org, go on the site, take a look. If you have suggestions or ideas, please put them out there, especially for people who will have to rely on the county system, because that's what we really have to keep the focus on.
Yeah, no, that's really scary. I didn't realize that there was nothing, no Social Security or...
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's not so easy to want to cut somebody's benefits then, and plus you have to live.
Right, and I think the key thing is looking at, you're giving people something that's sustainable that they can rely on. So.
By the way, I also think it's very smart to make things as open as possible, because you're in a no-win situation.
Well, I think, look, if you're honest with people and you're open, I think you end up
you can
okay.
possibly win. See, that's about the only thing, because if you try to pull the SOAP Act that many politicians try to pull, it doesn't usually work.
Right. Well, we have good leadership at the board, and we have good leadership in the president's office, and I think that there's been a lot of focus on being open and transparent. So it's a good time to do this.
No, and by the way, one thing I'll say, at least my dealings so far with this particular board and all the rest of it, have really been open and transparent. Unlike, I'm not going to get into some of my specific local politicians, not citywide.
Okay.
So you don't have you're not in this district.
No.
So actually, you're about 3 blocks away.
Right, I am. I'm just a little bit east.
Okay, so shut up, Abby. I won't. 1 minute to say anything else?
Yeah, so the other big thing that we're working on is we've been involved in the vacant building and foreclosure issue. Started because constituents were calling the office and got more and more involved and passed the county's vacant building ordinance in December to require, if you have a mortgage or the servicer or the bank has a mortgage, they have to do some maintenance because the houses were being left vacant, and the community really pays for that. The next thing we're moving on to is a land bank, and it's a longer conversation, and I'd love to come back, but it's basically a legal entity that can accept all this vacant land and do some really good, strong community planning. And it
that
exists.
sounds cool.
It's fantastic. I mean, urban agriculture and community development and transit-oriented development, all these great things. And they are really popular in places like Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit, parts of New York, because it's places that are 5 or 10 years ahead of us with foreclosures.
By the way, you should know that I really am into that kind of thing. And
Okay, good.
I've seen what's going on in Detroit. I have a big backyard.
Yeah.
So, I've got my 150, 200 square feet to grow things on.
Mm-hmm.
But in any event, at this point, Mickey's hands are starting to run the wrong
Okay,
way.
okay.
I'm definitely inviting back next shoot.
Thank you.
I'll get to study openoffice.org.
Openpensions.org.
Oh, thank you. OpenOffice is actually the program I use instead of Windows, whatever. Good, Avi. That's what 4 hours of sleep does for me. But anyway, listen, Commissioner Bridget Gainer, thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much.
Katie Sabo, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure working with you. And thank you so much for the good connections. And it's time to get on to our next guest. Thanks so much.
Thank you.